The rehearsal dinner at the Grandview Estate was supposed to be elegant. My sister Michelle had planned every detail with obsessive precision: white linens, crystal stemware, and a seating arrangement that placed me at the children's table. "Natalie can sit with the kids," Michelle announced to the event coordinator, not bothering to lower her voice. "She's good with children, and honestly, we need all the adult tables for actual guests." I stood in the doorway of the ballroom watching my older sister relegate me to plastic cups and coloring books. At 31, I was apparently not an actual guest at my own sister's rehearsal dinner. "Michelle, I'm not a babysitter," I said calmly. "Oh, come on. You love kids. Besides, it's not like you have a plus one." She turned to her fiancé James's mother, Patricia. "Natalie's single and works in hospitality. She's used to serving others, so this is perfect for her." Works in hospitality. That's how Michelle described my career to anyone who asked. Technically accurate. I did work in hospitality. What she failed to mention was that I was the CEO of Sterling Hospitality Group, a company that owned and operated 43 luxury venues across the East Coast, including the Grandview Estate where we were currently standing. My company had acquired Grandview 8 months ago as part of a portfolio expansion. Michelle had booked it a year earlier, long before the acquisition, and had no idea that her younger sister now owned the very venue where she was getting married. I'd kept my CEO position quiet from family for years. After building Sterling Hospitality from a single event space into a multi-million-dollar operation, I'd learned that family dynamics got complicated when people knew about your success. My parents constantly asked Michelle about her marketing job but never inquired about my hospitality work, beyond polite nods. So I'd stopped explaining. Let them think I was an event coordinator or venue manager. The truth would reveal itself eventually. "The kids' table is fine," I said simply, pulling out my phone. A text from my operations director, David. "Grandview manager reports Morrison wedding party has multiple special requests outside contract. How do you want to handle?" I typed back, "I'll handle it personally. I'm already on site." Michelle's fiancé James approached, looking uncomfortable. "Michelle, maybe we should seat Natalie with the adults. She is your sister." "James, we've been over this. Every table is strategically arranged. Your firm's partners at table 1, our parents at table 2, college friends at table 3. There's literally no room and the kids need supervision anyway." She softened slightly. "Natalie doesn't mind. Right, Nat? You're easygoing about these things." "Easygoing? That's what you called someone whose opinions didn't matter." "Of course," I said. "Whatever you need." What Michelle needed, apparently, was someone to manage 6 children under the age of 10 while she impressed James's family with her sophisticated celebration. The fact that person was her sister, who'd paid for her college textbooks when mom and dad hit financial trouble, who'd given her a reference for her first job, who'd always been there, seemed irrelevant. Patricia smiled approvingly at Michelle. "It's so nice that you have family willing to help. Some brides are so demanding about everything being perfect, but you're practical. That's the mark of good breeding." I caught the subtle dig. Patricia hadn't been thrilled that James was marrying a Morrison. We were solidly middle class while the Westbrook family came from old money. Michelle had been overcompensating ever since the engagement, trying to prove she belonged in their world. The rehearsal proceeded with military precision. Michelle walked through her ceremony blocking, critiqued the string quartet's tempo, and sent the caterers back to adjust the appetizer presentation twice. I sat at the kids' table helping a 5-year-old color within the lines while adults drank champagne and networked around me. My phone buzzed continuously. Messages from my executive team, from venue managers across the region, from a journalist wanting to interview me about Sterling Hospitality's expansion into the southern market. I answered emails between refilling juice cups and preventing a toddler from eating crayons. "Natalie, can you keep it down?" Michelle called across the ballroom. "The children are being disruptive." I was keeping it down. The children were being children. But I smiled and nodded, redirecting the kids to quieter activities. During dinner, my father Richard made a toast. "To Michelle and James. Michelle, you've always been our ambitious daughter, the one who knew what she wanted and went after it. We're so proud of the life you're building." The unspoken comparison hung in the air. Michelle was ambitious. Me? I was the easygoing one at the kids' table. James's father, Robert Westbrook, stood next. "James, you've chosen well. Michelle comes from a good hardworking family. Not everyone has advantages in life, but the Morrisons raised daughters who contribute to society in their own ways. In their own ways. The condescension was barely veiled. Michelle glowed under the praise. I wiped applesauce off a toddler's face. After dinner, the venue manager, my employee though Michelle didn't know it, approached nervously. Ms. Morrison? Could I speak with you privately? Michelle overheard. Natalie, if this is about venue stuff, I don't have time right now. Can you handle whatever small issue it is? You work in hospitality, right? Just take care of it. Of course, I said, following the manager to the hallway. Once out of earshot, he spoke urgently. Miss Sterling, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize when we booked the Morrison wedding last year that you'd be attending as a guest. Should I have? It's fine, Marcus. They don't know I own the company. Let's keep it that way for now. What's the issue? The bride's mother requested we comp the entire rehearsal dinner. She said her daughter works in hospitality and should receive a professional courtesy discount. She's also demanding we provide additional services, a champagne fountain, upgraded linens, and a private bridal suite, all outside the contract and without additional payment. Of course she did. My mother had never understood boundaries when it came to asking for favors. What did you tell her? That I'd need to speak with management. She became quite insistent, mentioned that her daughter Natalie could put in a good word with the owners since she works in the industry. I almost laughed. My mother was trying to use my fabricated industry connections to get freebies at my own venue. Here's what we'll do, I said carefully. Honor the original contract exactly as written. No comps, no upgrades. If they want additional services, standard pricing applies. Be polite but firm. Understood. And Miss Sterling? I have the quarterly reports you requested. Should I bring them to your hotel or? Tomorrow is fine. Tonight I'm just here as a guest. I paused. Well, as a babysitter apparently. Back in the ballroom, my mother cornered Marcus near the entrance. I watched from across the room as she gestured emphatically, clearly arguing about the comp request. Marcus maintained his professional composure, politely declining. Michelle appeared at her side, her face flushed with embarrassment. Mom, stop. You're making a scene. I'm just asking for reasonable accommodations. Natalie works at venues like this. Surely she could arrange something. Mom, Natalie probably coordinates events. She doesn't own the place. You're embarrassing me in front of James's family. Patricia Westbrook watched the exchange with barely concealed disdain, whispering something to Robert. The judgment was clear. These Morrisons always looking for handouts. I should have let it go. Should have stayed at the kids' table, kept my head down, maintained the status quo. Instead, I stood up and walked to where my mother and Michelle stood with Marcus. Is there a problem? I asked quietly. My mother grabbed my arm. Natalie, honey, can you talk to the management here? We just need a few small additions to the dinner package and they're being difficult about it. The contract was very specific, Mrs. Morrison, Marcus said carefully, his eyes flicking to me with barely perceptible apology. We're happy to provide additional services at standard rates. But surely there's some professional courtesy. Mom, I interrupted gently. Marcus is right. The contract is the contract. But you work in hospitality. Can't you? Actually, I said, my voice calm but carrying across the increasingly quiet ballroom, I can authorize changes to the contract. Marcus reports to me. My mother blinked. What? Marcus is the venue manager for the Grandview Estate. I'm his boss. I'm the CEO of Sterling Hospitality Group. We own this venue. And 42 others. The ballroom had gone completely silent. Michelle stared at me like I'd started speaking a foreign language. Patricia Westbrook's champagne glass stopped halfway to her lips. You're what? Michelle whispered. The CEO of Sterling Hospitality Group, I repeated. We acquired the Grandview Estate 8 months ago. You booked it before the acquisition, which is why you didn't know. But yes, you're getting married at my venue. Technically, you're renting from me. My father stood up so quickly his chair scraped loudly against the floor. Natalie, you own this place? My company owns it, yes. Along with 42 other luxury venues across the East Coast. Robert Westbrook pulled out his phone, clearly searching. His eyes widened. Sterling Hospitality Group. Founded 7 years ago. valued at over $200 million. CEO Natalie Sterling Morrison. He looked up at me. You're Ennis Morrison? The hospitality industry profile in Forbes last month. That was me, yes. Patricia had gone pale. Michelle said you work in hospitality. We thought you were an event coordinator. I do work in hospitality, I said calmly. Just at a different level than you assumed. Michelle found her voice high and strained. Why didn't you tell us? I tried to, Michelle. Multiple times. Last Thanksgiving I mentioned expanding the company into new markets. Dad changed the subject to your marketing promotion. At Easter I brought up the Forbes interview. Mom asked if I'd met any single men at industry events. At your engagement party I started to explain the business, and you interrupted to show me napkin colors. The assembled guests watched in stunned silence. James's firm partners looked suddenly very interested in me. Patricia's condescending smile had vanished entirely. You let us think you were. Michelle trailed off. What? Not ambitious? Not successful? In my own way. I quoted their earlier words back to them. I didn't let you think anything. You assumed and I stopped correcting you because it didn't seem to matter. My mother's face had gone red. Natalie, if you'd known, would it have changed anything? Would I still be at the kids' table, or would I suddenly be worthy of sitting with the actual guests? Michelle looked at the children's table, at the plastic cups and crayons, and then back at me. Oh my God. For what it's worth, I continued, the rehearsal dinner has been lovely. Marcus and his team have executed everything perfectly. The venue looks beautiful. You made a good choice when you booked it last year. James stepped forward, his lawyer instincts kicking in. Natalie, I apologize. If we'd known. You didn't need to know, I said simply. I'm happy to be here celebrating Michelle's wedding. I just wish I'd been celebrating as a sister, not as childcare. Patricia Westbrook had recovered enough to attempt damage control. Ms. Morrison, Ms. Sterling Morrison, we certainly meant no disrespect. Had we known about your position? My position shouldn't matter, I interrupted. I'm Michelle's sister. That should have been enough. The venue manager cleared his throat awkwardly. Miss Sterling, should I proceed with the original contract terms or? Original terms are fine, Marcus. Though I'd like to make one change. I looked at Michelle. The rehearsal dinner is on the house. Consider it my wedding gift. The ceremony and reception tomorrow proceed as contracted with standard payment. Natalie, you don't have to, Michelle started. I want to. You're my sister. I should have told you about the company sooner. But you also should have asked about my life instead of assuming I had nothing important going on. My father approached slowly. Natalie, I don't even know what to say. We've been treating you like I wasn't ambitious? Like I contributed to society in my own way? Kept my voice level. Yes. You have. Robert Westbrook spoke up, his tone completely changed from earlier condescension. Miss Sterling Morrison, I'd actually love to discuss your expansion strategy. Westbrook Holdings has been looking at hospitality investments. Dad, stop, James said quietly. Read the room. But I could see it happening already, the recalculation. Patricia's expression shifting from disdain to speculation. My parents' faces showing confusion and pride and embarrassment. The other guests whispering, pulling up their phones to search Sterling Hospitality Group. Michelle stood frozen, her perfect rehearsal dinner derailed by the revelation that her kid-table sister was actually more successful than anyone in the room had imagined. I'm sorry, she said finally, her voice small. Natalie, I'm so sorry. I've been awful to you. For years, apparently. Yes, I agreed. You have. Why didn't you say something? Why let us keep thinking? Because I wanted you to value me for being your sister, not for my bank account or business success. But apparently that wasn't enough. The rehearsal dinner continued, but everything had changed. Guests who'd ignored me earlier now wanted to network. James's firm partners discussed business opportunities. Patricia Westbrook invited me to sit at the adult table for dessert, an offer I politely declined. I stayed at the kids' table helping children with coloring books while adults whispered about valuations and acquisitions around me. Michelle approached as the evening wound down. Natalie, can we talk? We stepped onto the terrace, away from the crowd. I don't know how to apologize for this, she began. Not just tonight but everything. I've been so focused on impressing James's family, on proving I belong in their world, that I completely missed what was happening in yours. You didn't miss it, Michelle. You didn't look. You're right. And I'm ashamed of that. She twisted her engagement ring anxiously. When did you start the company? 7 years ago. I mentioned it at your graduation party. You were job hunting, stressed about your future. I told you I'd started a small event space business and you said, "That's nice," and went back to discussing your resume. Michelle flinched. And you built it into, what did Robert say? 200 million. The valuation is higher now, but yes, approximately. While I was bragging about my marketing job and treating you like, she couldn't finish the sentence. Like I wasn't important, I finished for her. Like my life was less valuable because I wasn't doing what you expected. I'm so sorry, Nat, truly. Can you forgive me? I looked at my sister, stressed, embarrassed, finally seeing me clearly for the first time in years. I can forgive you. But things need to change. Real questions about my life. Real interest in what I'm building. Not just when it's convenient or impressive. Absolutely. Nat. Thank you for comping the rehearsal dinner. You didn't have to do that after how we treated you. You're still my sister, I said simply. That doesn't change based on how you treat me. Though I wouldn't mind sitting at an actual table tomorrow. She laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. You're sitting at the head table. I'll bump a groomsman if I have to. The wedding the next day was beautiful. I sat with the bridal party, no longer relegated to childcare. My parents stumbled through apologies and questions they should have asked years ago. Patricia Westbrook suddenly found me fascinating. Robert Westbrook handed me his business card. During the reception, Michelle gave a speech. I want to thank my sister Natalie. I've realized recently that I've taken her for granted. She's built something remarkable, not just a business but a life full of purpose and success. And she did it quietly without needing recognition or praise. That's real strength. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. The applause was warm. But the real satisfaction came from knowing I'd built something that existed independent of their recognition. The venues, the business, the success. All of it constructed deliberately on my own terms. They'd given me the kids' table never knowing I owned the entire estate. They'd assumed I was less ambitious, less successful, less important. They'd been wrong. And now they'd finally see what I'd been building all along. Though honestly, I'd known my worth long before they did.